All right. Welcome, FFL. I'm going to go ahead and bring in my buddy Anthony. Anthony, are you with us?
I'm with you.
All
Good evening,
right.
Tim.
Since good evening to you as well, and good evening to the USFFL after a awesome New Year's Day of football. And perfect timing for us to get started here. We have finished all of our Week 13 games in the USFFL, and we're about to hit all of our week. We've totally hit the little curve right between the two, and it's a perfect time to do our annual insert of a little playoff chase preview, a little primer for you. We're looking to go team by team tonight and just kind of look at their place in their standings divisionally, their place in the standings conference wise, and as it relates to either being eliminated chances within the structure of the Coach of the Year tournament for teams that might be looking on the outside in, such as my own. We'll see where that leads us. So we're going to do that and probably start in the AFC and just work our way across tonight. You ready to go for that, Anthony?
We're ready to go.
All right. So let me go ahead and let's switch to my screen. You, Anthony, you kind of double check me here, make sure that what I think people are seeing is what they're seeing. So are you seeing the AFC East there, Anthony?
I am seeing the AFC East.
All right, sensational. So let's go ahead and start there. We'll take our first team, the New England Patriots, coached by Dennis Jung. And off to a 10-3 start, 4-0 division record. Uh, they have not clinched the division. I did not mark them as clinched, but it's as close as you can be. The Buffalo Bills, technically, if they win out, would be 10-7. Patriots would lose. If they lose out, would be 10-7. So that's 9 games breaking one way, all the same way, I should say. Let alone the fact that at that point you're just I guess if that happens, it would be a 5-1 division record and a split of the two games set between these teams. So the Bills still can win the division, but the Patriots pretty much have that locked up. As far as their position conference, I was your own Chargers, Anthony, clicking on their heels, as are the Colts. So the 1 seed very much in play for the single bye. But Dennis has his team looking really good. We've got their schedule here, and obviously they're looking very good on tiebreakers. As far as although let's see, though he does have the tiebreaker against you and the Colts. He has not played, but that is his next opponent, so that's a very important game for the Patriots and Colts as it relates to 1 seed battle that you're right in the middle of. Anthony, what are you seeing here for New England?
Yeah, so that comes up not this week, but next week, the Patriots Colts battle. And one handicap we have coming into the show is that we do have some buys left, and you see those two there. I think there's 2 more, right? So
I
there's
think,
Miami and New England.
yeah, I think that may be
Yep.
the only 2 in the entire league, actually.
Oh, okay, got it. So we're a week away from that one, and yeah, when you look at the conference standings, that's going to have a pretty big impact. But when you look at the division overall, it's interesting to see it shaping up a lot like last year. An early clinch for New England. And when you look at the
Yeah.
the in real life standings, I think the Bills won by a game, 11 wins. Pats finished at 10-7. Dolphins, I think, were just over 500, and the Jets were sort of lagging behind, close to where they are now. So I mean, the big switch is Buffalo down in third. Miami is pretty much holding its own, a little bit behind, and that's something that we foresaw, because we thought they weren't quite carded the way that they should be, certainly from a fumbles perspective. But the headline, I guess, is Buffalo.
Hmm.
And Buffalo is, and from a USFFL perspective, they've had the weakest schedule in the league, and it's true for. By the way, as you look at strength of schedule, I guess the total schedule's 32nd so far, 31st, so pretty much the easiest. And all of the AFC teams, by the way, you'll notice, don't really rank very high in strength of schedule because we play each other, and we tend to lose to the NFC a lot.
Yeah, I've
so
noticed.
so
I resemble
yeah,
that
yeah,
remark.
yeah. You'll see the top strength of schedules coming out of the NFC. But what's happened to Buffalo? Is I think a key question. They're leading the league in long pass attempts. Nobody throws it deep more than Buffalo does. Throws deep early and often. But maybe the most important one is their guess margin, and that's something we posted
Sure, saw that.
up on the Slack board. Yeah, 32nd, 14 percentage points behind, and it's tough. If you're playing guess wrong on D or guessed right on offense, it's gonna obviously, massively impact the results. And I think if you look at anything, that would be the reason why. Now, why is New England doing what they're doing, right? Well, I mean, similarly easy schedule, by the way. I mean, so far 30th in the league, right, compared to Buffalo's 31st. The rest of the way, it's 21st. So I mean, it gets a little bit more difficult, including that Indianapolis game. But this is a team that doesn't throw deep at all. I mean, 31st in the league in long pass attempts. And we talked about a little bit on the last show we did. There's a couple quarterbacks out there, right? The rookies, right? Jacksonville, New England,
Yeah,
also Taylor Heineke, where they had this interception not on 11, but up in the other numbers, which really dissuades these coaches from calling deep. But it really helps if you're winning to not have to call deep either, right? And not have to go to those cards. And New England's been winning, been able to avoid going to the long pass. I think Dennis
yeah,
posted something about the fact that New England hasn't been behind in many of its games, and there you go.
right.
So not having to go deep, instead, 14th in the league in running. They're not, everything else is right down the middle. 14th in running,
But a
12th in
good
flat pass,
defense too
13th in
is
short pass. Oh yeah, and the defense is
keeps it
is
in the games, keeps it close.
well, yeah, it's a mixed bag on D, right? Leading the league in completion percentage, leading the league in TD passes against, third in yards against, but you don't want to look at the rushing side, right?
Yeah,
29th in yards, and 31st in run attempts. So teams are trying to run on New England, but when they have to pass, when they're down, like you say, that New England pass defense has been shutting them down.
yeah. Let's look also at the wild card situation while we're here on this AFC Eastern division, because obviously we've already outlined that really the Patriots are going to walk away with the division. It looks like so. Miami and Buffalo in the AFC, the threshold right now is an even record 6-6. So if you look here, we've got 6-6 is your threshold to make the playoffs. Dolphins and Bills both down here, 5-7-1 and 5-7. So they're both in a position to compete. Dolphins are less likely to see a tiebreaker as part of that equation. I think they tied, if I'm not mistaken, Cleveland. I think if that's right. And so, that'd be the only team they could really tie in a wild card scenario. Otherwise, their tiebreakers are not going to be, a big part. But like the Buffalo, uh, they've got, let's see, Titans and Jaguar. Well, Jaguars, I think, are Titans, Colts. So whoever, like the Titans are 6-6, I think, right? So they're going to be a
Hmm.
possible a tiebreaker issue for them. But they're in pretty good shape. They've got what other big games coming up here? Jets, Falcons, no. So yeah, I mean, it's just about getting. I think of the Bills and Dolphins at only there's 7 losses, and probably. Do you think you're going to have to run the table probably, or do you think 8 losses can maybe get one of these teams a wild card? What would you think if
Well, I
you're?
mean, without knowing the schedules inside and out,
Yeah,
it looks like you're trying to get to 9-8 and hoping for the best, which is a lot like how it turned out in real life last year, by the way,
yeah,
in the AFC. And I think the Chargers did finish 9-8 and still finished out of it, right? Um, looking at this division, who is a shot to get there? Well, I mean, Dolphins are not in a bad spot. I mean, they've got to win either their quote unquote easiest games based on chalk or based on the cards are the next two. So if you're Miami, which is you got the Jets and you've got New Orleans coming up, right?
yeah.
Those are must wins because after that you have Tennessee and New England. You're not going to expect to be able to. So you got to get if you get one out of two of those, that gives you 3 wins, and then where are they? With 3 wins, they're at eight, eight
Eight, eight,
and
eight, and
one,
one, basically.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, if they were to lose the other game. So
Which is and I think that's
Bills
what
with
you
six
hope for
conference
if
losses
you're
strikes me
Miami.
as tough.
Yeah,
So
that's
they're
what you
going to
hope
be
for
looking
if
to
you're
win those
Miami, but
AFC. I don't think. I think it'd be tough to think you're going to sneak out a wild card tiebreaker with a 7 loss. Uh, conference record, so they're probably going to be needing to win those 2 games against Patriots and Jets, I would think. But let's see for Coach of the Year for all 3 teams to include. By the way, so Miami and the Jets. Help me out here. Jaguars, Colts.
Let's see, Dolphins. Dolphins
Dolphins.
have
There
a
they are.
hurdle. Yeah, they've got to win out,
Yeah,
and
they really do. And the Bills, of
um,
course. I
oh,
don't know.
if they win out, they're still not in, right? Because that would put them right at
And they're going to
the.
be in the playoffs if they were to get there.
Well,
So
that's an
really, it's just the
interesting.
Jets, and the Jets still need 3 more wins, right? Yeah, 3 more wins in their final 4 games. Are you still there?
I'm still here.
Why is it not?
Jets.
There we
Jets.
go. I was having trouble switching back here. Okay. There we go. So the Jets would need to win 3 games remaining on their schedule here. And,
That next game against Miami is a big one for both of their postseason chances, for
yeah,
sure. So and it's 2 weeks away. Jets Miami. Um, so that's obviously loser probably going home, given the rest of their schedules. So the winning that game is what's going to give one of those 2 teams a chance for postseason. Interesting on Miami,
yeah,
and Miami, if they get to 9 wins, right, which means they're going to have to win out. Then they would what? They would exceed last year's total, or they'd match it. Let's see. They would go back to your
yep, sorry.
coach of the year.
Oh,
Okay, so they have to exceed for coach of year, right?
that's right.
So 9 would give them a match of wins. They'd still be better in the loss column because of the tie. Does that count as 9.5 wins for coach of year or 9 wins for coach of year?
So you
And
have, yeah. So yeah, you're right. Your win percentage has to be better than
ah,
what it was in real life.
okay, so their eligibility remains because if they win out and don't make the playoffs, then they'd have a win percentage that's higher due to the tie.
That's correct.
Yep, yep,
Yep,
got it.
that's correct. But I think if they win out, they're playoff bound too. So
Most likely, yes.
most
Okay,
likely.
most likely, yes.
Yeah, I think that's probably what we can expect there. So where we're at with the AFC East is the Patriots are almost certainly a playoff team, though that's not officially clinched, and it's kind of an uphill climb, though possible for all 3 other teams to maybe get to the postseason. We'll have to see where that leads. Let's move on to the AFC North, really one of the more exciting divisions here at the top of it, with I guess I would say you want to say only a 3-way chase, but I mean you wonder at 3-9, and I think there's maybe too much to climb. I don't know about the mathematics of Pittsburgh being able to make a run, but certainly like that log jam up there at the top. Tom Veltri and the Cleveland Browns, he's got them with a half-game lead over Cincinnati and Jeff Winlett. John Shoemaker and his Baltimore Ravens, just a game behind that. And then, of course, like I said, the defending champs, Peter Shibley and his Pittsburgh Steelers. What are you looking at here in the AFC North, Anthony?
Well, we on our last show, we think we highlighted Cleveland as a team that could emerge. I think the last time we touched base, Tim, they were down in third place,
Hmm. They've gotten
and
hot down the
yeah,
stretch here.
and have rocketed up to the top. And how have they done it? Well, they've been, as you'd expect, they've been running the ball. They lead the league in rushing yards, third in average, second in carries, and on a percentage basis, number one. 56% of the time they run the ball.
Wow.
Which has led to if you run the ball a lot, you're going to have a good guess margin, and just because people tend to call pass, and yeah, ninth in the league in guess margin, but the hidden stat that drives Cleveland's resurgence is the sacks.
Yep. I thought
Yeah,
you were going to say that.
leading the league in sacks, third in sack win percentage at 30%, but also number one in sack contests, right? So sack contests means that they're safety blitzing a lot. They're causing. You're not just relying on Myles Garrett to come up with a D die. You're not going to get a lot of sack contests by doing that. You're going to have to force the issue by blitzing, and as a result, they're just 28th in long pass men in zone, right, with point 0.4 men in zone, deep. Sort of hoping that the long passes don't connect, and I can certainly relate to that with the Chargers. But it's been running and sacking that's got them there. They have a schedule coming up. Let's see, you got it right there: Ravens, Raiders, Packers stuck in the middle. That's not nice at all to face them, and then so it's not at all an easy schedule. I mean, it's going to be difficult to. It's there's no guarantee come out of this schedule above 500, right? I mean, each one of those is a challenge, including the Steelers, which are at the bottom of the division. So from my point of view, just looking at who is the easiest schedule going forward here, just flipping through that real fast. Let's see, Baltimore's schedule going forward is fourth toughest in the league. Cincinnati's is 23rd. Cleveland's is 14th,
Yeah,
and
that's my eye
Pittsburgh.
test.
Yeah, Pittsburgh is down at 19. So I guess on a relative basis, you gotta like Cleveland's chances versus Cincy in terms of I'm sorry, not Cincy's 20 versus Baltimore, who's got the fourth toughest schedule. You look at that schedule, yeah, that's super rough. So bottom line, I think it's anybody's game here. I mean, Baltimore maybe has a little bit of a difficult track because they're sitting out a game or a game and a half, and they've got to climb a hill of a very very tough schedule. So
Yeah, the
between the Browns and the Bengals, it's
Bengals have to play the 49ers, but that's not the same as the Ravens and Browns having to face off with the Packers. As at least as the way I've been looking at, the power that this Packer team has brought to the table. So I don't know with that because the Bengals are carded better. I don't know. I kind of like the Bengals here, not with the Packers not being on their schedule.
well, I mean, obviously we see Week 18. Could easily come down to that.
Yeah.
Bengals Browns end of the year. Right now, Cleveland has the tiebreak.
But
So
not against Cincinnati. I mean, they do, but barring a tie, it's going to be a non that tiebreaker is really a non-factor. Because Cincinnati's doesn't have the tie on their
because of the
schedule.
tie, right, because of the tie, right. Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep. Very true.
Well, it's
Very
going to be
true.
a fun division to
It
kind
could
of see
easily
that
come down
play
to Week
out.
18. Yeah, I mean,
Let's
it could
see how
easily.
these three teams look at for the AFC COY. I say three, but actually four. Although the Steelers, right? That would be they're eliminated from Coach of the Year. There's no way they can get there. I'll need to be, and I haven't quite updated this to which ones are eliminated from all that, and I'll get that started coming up here as I post it. Bengals, yeah, if they win out though, they would probably win that division. And so Browns are really, and where's the Ravens? Browns are right by there. They are. So Browns and Ravens are really the two that if they didn't win the division, are probably in line that they would have a shot. Uh, Browns still need 3 wins, though. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the noticeable thing as you roll through that is how tight this division was, right? You got
Yeah,
8 wins for the Browns, 8 wins for the Ravens, 9 wins for the Steelers, and 10 for Cincinnati. So top to bottom, last place was 8 wins, first place was 10 wins.
and that's kind of what we're seeing here.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, this is going to be a really fun division to see it play out, particularly if Baltimore and Pittsburgh can, get involved. Especially Baltimore, they're so close. I think it'd be fun to make that a 3-team race there. All right, let's move along. AFC South and the Indianapolis Colts kind of running away. They're undefeated in the division at 5-0. So 3-game lead on the Titans. They did already sweep them, and so that means the Titans would have to gain 4 games over the next 5 weeks. So it's not a division clinch for the Colts, but it's all but locked up for them. Titans are on the tie spot for the wild card, and I think I had them leading there because they had one of the better conference records of that group, 5-3. That conference records, one of the main tie breaks if you get
Hmm.
multiple wild card teams across separate divisions. So that's kind of where I'll delineate that for now in the early weeks. Jacksonville, Texas really struggling. I'm sure you're going to have some say to this about that because it's certainly been a rough ride there, but that's okay. Sean McGinnis, his first year in the league. That's all right. We'll give him some time to. Plus, Houston's only going to get better as they start to line up some better prospects with their position in the upcoming draft in real life.
Mhm.
So, all right, let's take a look. Before we go to Coach of the Year, what are you seeing here on the AFC South?
Well, I mean, the winner in real life was Tennessee, 12 wins, right? So what what's going on with Tennessee? I think would be the first thing that I would want to take a look at. Sitting at 6-6, um, what's gone wrong? I mean, I guess it's the passing game. There's a lot of good that's gone on. I mean, they've run the ball pretty effectively, third in the league in yards per carry, despite the fact that they're, as you'd expect, lead the league in being guessed correctly on
With
uh,
Derek, yeah, you bet.
yeah,
That helps.
but they still have a really strong defensive guess margin. I mean, overall, they're second in defensive guessing at 65%. So
Wow.
you take Henry aside, I mean,
Wow.
let's.
Yeah.
It makes me want to look at the results of the games. I'm just going to stroll through that and see how many close ones
Well, I've got
there's.
it pulled up right there on the screen for you.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
still
I mean,
talking Tennessee.
you see a couple field goals here and there, but you see some two, three pretty decisive loss to the Rams, pretty decisive loss to New Orleans. It's a tough one to figure out. I mean, penalties. I mean, they've committed the 22nd highest. Sorry, they're 22nd in the league in penalties, which is not the good, that's the bad guy, not a good guy. So maybe that's hurt them a little bit, but they're double teaming well. It's a difficult one to diagnose. I mean, they've not fumbling the ball. I guess turnovers. I mean, turnovers are good. They're third best in giveaways. So I guess you have to point to the passing offense. Just hasn't been what is 28th in the league in yards. So you'd assume there's a lot of guess wrong opportunities there,
Yep.
and they're not being able to convert them. Let's bring up Tannehill stats and just take a look. I don't have Tannehill's in real life passer rating, but he's going at a 91.4 clip. I mean, that's not bad. Nothing wrong with that at all.
No.
Three picks, 14 touchdowns. Um,
Wow.
so figure in this one out. They're outgaining their opponents by 400 yards, uh, leading in yards per play by a third of a yard. In a healthy 5.6. So there's nothing wrong with that. Third downs about right. They're up 36-34. I'm just sort of fourth downs. They're up 44-30. Just scroll. It's sort of a mysterious. I'd love to. Is it Pete?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Coach Pete
yeah,
Quagliarini.
yeah. I'd love his opinion. Um,
What's gone
of
right? What's gone wrong? Would be
yeah.
nice to debrief everybody. I was looking at it. A key win on the Titans ledger is that Bills win. You think about that. You reverse that record, and you've got the Bills at 6-6. They're maybe sitting in the wild card spot right now, and the
Mhm.
Titans are the game behind them and have that loss on their ledger instead for the tiebreaker. So that having that tiebreaker on a 5-7 team underneath them across conference is a nice win for them. So I thought I'd point that out. That's good on the
And
ledger for sure.
even red zone. I mean, 20th on offense, not bottom 10 in red zone. I mean, you'd like to be better than 20th, but is that enough to account for a pretty significant win differential difference? No. I mean, I guess you got to point to the passing yard production, despite the fact that Tannehill's not throwing picks. 28th in yards is 28th in yards.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Should we take a look at the coach of the year on these
Sure.
guys? All right. So Indianapolis, like I said, looking like the inside track to win that division, but they're, as you can see, performing already ahead of the pace anyway from the year prior. Texans not looking good there from a standpoint of needing to win
Yep.
out to make the that tournament. And Titans, of course, they're behind the curve, just like you outlined at length. And
Mhm.
who's the other? Oh, the Jaguars. Look at this. Joe Golden, who switched over to the Jaguars for this season, already got himself clinched into the coach of the year, provided he does not make the playoffs. So here's the Jaguars at 4-8 in the AFC. That only keeps you 2 games off the pace, so they're not eliminated. But if they do not happen to get into that wild card race, they've got a place waiting for them already in
Hmm.
the Coach of the Year tournament this year. So,
Yeah, it's good. Joe's a super tough coach. I think we all know that,
oh yeah, very.
and it's unsurprising to see the Jags. It's not a team you'd want to face, not a coach you want to face in COI. It's interesting too because I think it points to, you know, if you look at Jags guess margin, right, 25th in the league, -5 percentage points. Um, Guess margin doesn't tell you how good a coach is. I mean, you'll notice correlations out there, right? How often you guess pass on D, those that guess run a lot, tend to get burned more. And so it's a not that he's a big pass caller, not he's not certainly not this year, but it's guess margin doesn't tell the whole story. He's outperforming the team they did last year, and they're doing it by on the margins a bit better than they did last year, and that just takes good coaching to do it.
Yeah,
Overall, sixth in long pass attempts, seventh in flat passing, 26th in running, and I think that's interesting too, right? Are you running at the right times? And if I had to say anything about Jacksonville watching, it would be that. So despite just running 33% of the time, you see James Robinson ripping off short gains left and right. So just well timing his
yeah.
runs.
Speaking of
Uh,
well timing on that franchise, I had one coach in the league mention to me what a shrewd movie this coach mentioned for Joe to jump over to the Jaguars right before Trevor Lawrence starts to kind of hit his stride. So
yep.
Joe's got himself in a good position. So one coach pointed that out to me, and I happen to agree. So, all right,
He's done
anything
a
else
good
before we
job,
move?
and he's done a good job in mixing up his passing too. People are not very successful when they double team
Oh
against
yeah, really?
Jacksonville. Yeah, sixth best in league there. And so you don't have a signature receiver, sort of gives you the luxury. Make sure you switch it around. I think
That's true.
Chenault is 36th in targets, so he doesn't have anybody in the top 32. You figure everybody would have one on average in the top
Yeah.
32, and Chenault is down at 36.
Doug Peterson's in town. I think that's going to help attract the way they're playing right now. They're going to start attracting some free agents. They're going to get some good receivers over there. I'll bet.
And he's faced a pretty tough schedule so far too. 12th in the league so far, 521 win percentage, and still been able to pull that off, which is a pretty high number for the AFC. So congrats,
Yeah.
Joe, on a good season.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. And before we go, I want to let me go back real quick. Last thing I just realized, I think of all the coaches, I didn't mention the name John Freeze. I may not have mentioned his name. I certainly want to salute John, 5-0 in the division, and just a great job with his Colts, getting them in the position again.
Yeah, running that
So,
ball. I mean,
you know,
Jonathan Taylor's the only back in the league to be top 20 in all three runs. He's second in linebacker attempts, ninth in off tackle attempts, and seventh in end run attempts.
wow,
Nobody else touches top 20 in all three.
wow.
So feeding that ball to Taylor has worked out well.
Hit your playmakers, man. Let them run it. Absolutely, I'm a big fan. All right, AFC West. On a personal stinging note, I was watching my Chiefs today, and I was thinking, man, I could really use like a 70-something yard run from Isaiah Pacheco today to roll out against my division mates next year. And it was like 20 minutes later that I saw Austin Eckler do that very thing. It was really depressing for me. So,
I almost back messaged you. I wrote it and I was like, oh no, I don't want to jinx myself, and so I didn't I didn't do it. In my mind, I was like, that's going to come in handy next year.
I know. I would swear, no kidding. I swear I was using the number 70s and Pacheco in my mind out loud, like right before Eckler did it. I was so disappointed.
The
And
fact
I was
is,
like,
75 is a magic number there, right? Because
oh, yeah.
off the touchback, you would
Yeah.
love to have that 75 plus because you can run anybody out there and just plant the seed in the defensive coach's mind that this guy can go the distance.
All right.
72 close enough, but you still 75 is that
So
magic.
let's start looking at this. And for those who don't realize the voice you're listening to for Anthony, he's the head coach here for these Los Angeles Chargers, and your commissioner is the head coach down at the bottom here for the Kansas City Chiefs. Chargers have built themselves a three-game lead and are undefeated in the division. So it's not sealed up because you got two teams that are within 3 games, but Well, you're in a great position with a 1 win against all three and a 3-game lead. So it's another place where the division is close to locked up. But the Broncos and Raiders at 6-6, so that's good enough for the fringe of your tiebreaker scenarios. I've got the Raiders in and Broncos out now. I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. Those tiebreaks are, loose at this point and still developing as we go. But both are really in good shape to maybe have 3 teams make the playoffs here from the AFC West. A fourth team is, you're not going to get 4 out of this division. Can the Chiefs make the playoffs? I'm going to tell you that they can. I'm going to tell you that they won't, but I think that there's a chance if you could run the table here with the Chiefs, only because still only 3 conference losses and some good tiebreaker wins. You're looking at Bills, Titans, and Ravens. Browns tiebreaker would preclude me, but those are Bills, Titans, and Ravens with how many wins those teams have. Those are good tiebreakers to have right now in that wild card hunt. So if the Chiefs could get really hot, maybe so. Um, let's go ahead and leave that there. We'll come back to Coach of the Year, Anthony. I'd love to hear you talk about the AFC West here for us.
Well, so Chargers, 9 wins last year? We're at that spot now. Been able to do it just by mixing run and pass effectively, and that's a gift of the cards. Not all of the teams out there sort of have that luxury. Last year, the Chargers really didn't have that same luxury because Eckler didn't have the carries. This year, Eckler has the carries. So because of that, been able to just mix it up and get just good offensive stats. Chargers lead the league in yards to go on second down, right? So
Oh, that's a good stat.
that's it's because of good mixing of running and passing, um, and just been able to outscore opponents. Leading the league in points, and it's interesting to know. Packers are right at the top two, along with the Chargers and a few others up there. The Chargers are third in extra points, fourth in rushing TDs, 10th in passing TDs. Right, there's that mix too.
Yeah.
Um, Getting good kickoff returns too, leading the league there in kickoff return average. But the stat that I think that sticks out is that the Chargers are 25th in field goals. Okay, Packers are
Uh,
down.
a total number of field goals made. Is that what we're
Yeah, points
okay?
from field goals. Yeah, points from field goals.
Okay.
And Packers are down the bottom 10 too. So
Red zone
the
percentage.
yeah, I mean, just being effective in the red zone. I mean, third in red zone TDs, 12th in efficiency, but third in TDs. Number one in red zone trips are the Chargers. So being able to push that ball down the field, I can give you the defensive stats are not good at all, and it wasn't going to be good.
That's right.
32nd last in the league in rushing average against. So it's a matter of sort of overcoming the defensive problems by just taking advantage of opportunities in the red zone and not settling for field goals. Not that the Chargers go for a ton of fourth downs. You might think that we do, but we're 26th in attempts on fourth down. So it's about
Really?
converting. Yeah, it's about converting before you get to fourth. Right, is even more important than getting there. So that's been the Chargers story. Just another really really good offense. I think the stories of the Broncos and the Raiders are interesting too because they're getting there different ways. I mean, the Broncos are doing it by passing, right? We think of Denver as a running team, and they are the most running oriented team in the division, right? But they're fourth in the league in short pass attempts
Wow.
at 28%. And Teddy Bridgewater has led this team eighth in passing yards versus
Wow.
16th in rushing yards. Okay, so they're they're passing and they're not sticking to Teddy's flat pass card. They're going to a short pass card. 24th in flat passing, yet fourth in short passing. Now Vegas, on the other hand, right, with Carr's card, which does have he's good at all three levels, right?
Oh yeah.
Leads the league in flat passing, number one at 47%. 32nd in running, by the way, and run as a percentage of plays. But they're doing it with small ball passing. And as you look at the flat pass targets, I mean, it's going to Kenyon Drake a ton.
Yeah.
It's
Saw
going
that.
to Waller. It's going to Jacobs. It's going to Hunter Renfro. nobody at the very top of flat pass looking past targets, but a bunch of different guys at the top in terms of flat passing their way to success. Both of these teams, by the way, overcoming what appears to be some pretty rough defensive cards by doing it offensively different ways. And I think Denver's ability to surprise people with stretching the field a little bit via short, not long, but short, has been a big part of their success because they're able to generate run calls just by looking at Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon's card.
Yeah.
Um, so it's they're 10th in the league in oh, sorry, that's defense. Um, they're number one. Let's see. I'm looking at Kansas City here. Denver guest right running is fifth in the league. So they're able to, when they do run, they're running on second down a lot, second and long. So they're getting a lot of pass calls. And 13th in the league in guest right passing. So that's good. I mean, compare that to the Chiefs, right? Where you don't have the same two dimensions
No.
that Denver does. It makes such a big difference. And the same thing is true for the Chargers, right? Go right back to that. And you might say it's a bit of a flaw in the game that when you're so pass heavy, that defensive coaches can really dial in. And I think that explains a lot of Kansas City's struggles and on a relative basis, the success of a Denver or the success of a Chargers. You think you could also say that's true for Las Vegas, because they have Josh Jacobs, but Vegas has been doing it different ways.
Yeah, and
Um,
they've got a real good, just an elite flat pass card there, and Coach, you got to give Coach Paul Conti of credit for the Vegas 6-6 record, and Coach David Kukofka with the Broncos, both at 6-6, and having themselves on the precipice of a playoff run here.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, both of them. Denver, we've talked about it. Denver's a really tough team to face, in my opinion, because you just are stymied on defense. You feel a little bit handcuffed because of the run pass option that they have. When
Yeah,
their guys are healthy, and they're healthy now, it feels like you're in a bit of a box. And they went up and down the field on the Chargers, and we'll face them again in a couple of weeks. And we'll be lucky to escape with a win again, just like we were lucky last time. And Denver also has a really solid penalty card, which is unique for the division. Okay,
yeah, yeah.
sixth in penalties called, which is where you want to be. Everybody else is not doing too well in the penalty category. Certainly, the Raiders are not doing well in the penalty,
I get
leading the
my
league in
share.
yards. Yeah, so Denver, they don't commit penalties. They can run, they can pass, and they have the best defensive cards in the league. And that's why I would say if you look at what's going to happen here, Denver has a pretty good chance of getting through.
Yeah,
Mostly because they're healthy. Bridgewater is flirting up at like 140 in his overuse, but it's not really going to matter once you get this far out. You've got to throw like 80 times in a game to move the
yeah. The
needle from
sample size
140 to
gets
150.
larger.
Yeah, the sample size gets, and it's much more difficult to move the needle. So I think Denver's in great shape here, just great shape.
Yeah, so let's take a look then. Speaking of great shape, even if they miss the wild card, Broncos need David Kukofka needs just 2 wins to become eligible for the Coach of the Year here. Raiders, on the other hand, would have to win out, and that would probably get him in the playoffs. So it really is the Broncos that are in a position that they might be able to make that Coach of the Year tournament if they have to as a consolation prize.
So please go into your diagnosis of KC.
Oh, I'm not. So all I would tell you about, I'm not going to do too much on that because through the course of our broadcast, I think people have kind of heard my KC takes and stuff. All I would say about that is that I think I've just been self-diagnosing problems in how I was coaching the team, changes of things I was doing differently from last year, and not really taking good enough stock of what the impacts of those changes were. I've got myself in a place now where I feel confident again and enjoying playing my team again. But like I say, it's the hole's too big, and it's probably too late. But I don't know. It is what it is. I know that. All I would say is what I'm trying to communicate is I feel clearly that I played my way into this hole. This isn't a dice hole.
You would have
I
to
don't
you'd
think
have to
I don't
force the
think my
run.
dice were kind, but I played my way into this hole. So
You'd have to force the run, and you're not designed to force the run. Look, I am not an advocate. Let me say it right here. Not an advocate for flat passes runs. We did it once. It's it's difficult, but I tell you, with when you have one-dimensional teams out there like you do in the last 5, 10 years, that's the way Strat can capture it and make those teams as good as they are in real life. The Chiefs are 32nd last in the league, as you know, at 95% guessed right passing.
right.
Right? It's
But that's a lot of my mismanagement.
I know,
That's
but you need to force the run in
mostly
an
my mismanagement.
unrealistic way that the Chiefs don't do. That's the point, right? Is that you'd have to force the issue in a way that the Chiefs don't need to on the field in real life
I
to make
suppose that
that
there's
work.
some truth to that, but I still just feel that, uh, you know, I don't know. I still just feel like you just have to kind of work with what you've got. I have felt that, that it's more difficult. His flat pass card is, to me, it strikes me as pretty bad. It's like there's some quarterbacks that,
Hmm.
how do I say this? That
Below
pale in
average.
comparison based on what people would fear, but their flat passes don't have the -3 and the -1 that mine do before the yak kicks in.
Right.
I start in the hole, and it's so yeah, it's a little tough, but I still just think that. When you look at the record as bad as it is, I think it's a lot of just mismanagement. I think I could have done a much better job at balancing. You can force balance better than I did with what the hand I was dealt, and so I'll be doing that more. So, but like I say, I'm having fun with it, and they're not out of it. I still don't think I'm out of it, but I would just have to get red hot. But I'm not dead till I'm dead. So, all right, let's move on to the NFC East. And one of the things that I thought was unique here is take a look at the division games that are left on the schedule. Like,
Mhm.
look at the Commanders, Cowboys, Eagles, Giants. That's all they have. They've only played one division game all year. And then there's two other teams that have only played two, who have like the Eagles, all they have are four. So the Eagles and Commanders only have division games left, and the Cowboys only have one game. This block here is literally only one game that's out of the division. So it's just crazy to me. I don't remember a division. I had to go back and kind of double check and double look at everything because it just didn't make sense. But
Hmm.
it's a division rush here, and what a perfect setup for that with all teams within one game of each other. Anthony, my man, I'll just leave it at that. Go crazy. Talk to me about the NFC East.
Well, it's let's take a look at the last. So the real life, right? Giants 4 wins, last place, not even close. It was Cowboys at 12, Eagles at 9, and Washington at 7 up at the top. Um, and so, I mean, the first thing to say is, well, wow, look at those Giants, right? I mean, right in the thick of it. They've got interesting schedule coming up, but facing the Chargers this week in LA, the cards are not in the Giants' favor there. But Scott has been able to do it sort of over and over again. If he can get that win this week? Wow, is that a big help? And then he's got what just two more division games, Cowboys and Eagles, which are obviously
No,
highly
he's got the
highly
Commanders. He's got one
consequential.
of each.
Oh, Commanders, that's right. Commanders, right. I'm looking for the wrong name as usual. Um, it's I don't see how Dallas doesn't win it. I mean, in terms of cards, and you see Dallas has struggled early, and that my impression, I don't know for sure, but I feel like they're surging. Yeah, let's see, they've won their last three now, and they struggled. Well, they struggled most of the first half, right, and now have come back with a win. Kansas City, win Las Vegas, win New Orleans. They are the best carded team of these four, and Harlan has them going pretty well right now. He's guessing defense well. He's seventh in the league and guessing on D. He's got obviously a great mix of run and pass.
Yeah, his two
That's
running
just
back duo was definitely a game changer against me.
yeah, and has a pretty good defense, ninth in the league in average yards against on the rush. It's the pass. The pass defense is a little bit suspect, 29th there. But as he goes into the division, that's when, in those two games, sorry, he's got four games, right, in the division? Um, one, two, three, four. Yeah. Uh, it's an interesting division because it's not a pass heavy division, it's a run heavy division.
Yeah,
And that favors the Cowboys even more. So
and the Eagles, I think.
yeah, but it's from a defensive perspective, that bad Cowboys pass defense, 29th in the league right now in yards, that's minimized a bit, and that very strong average yards per carry for Dallas sort of gets highlighted as he faces, the Eagles and the Commanders in particular, who just run the ball a ton. Um, Eagles Eagles have been running their way to victories, and they crushed my Chargers. I always fear these running teams. Second in the league in running at 50% of the time, so they're just running a ton. Second in yards, number one overall in attempts, number two in TDs, but they're also getting a good run D. So just a solid sort of tough team, but I think it's tough. The Cowboys are a tough matchup. I think the Cowboys are a tough matchup for all of these teams. The Cowboys lost to the Giants the first time around. Interesting. So
Cowboys are
they,
also the one that has the better conference record. Like if they didn't win this
mhm.
division, the Cowboys are with five wins in conference are in a better shape to compete than say the Eagles would be with six conference losses. And the tiebreakers that go against you in that
And
situation too.
Washington, done a great job, I think, of hanging around with
Oh
what is really
yes,
a tough set of defensive cards. No
that's right. Their
no
defensive cards are
team
atrocious.
no team is short passed and long passed more than the Washington Commanders. 32nd in small ball against, meaning you can combine run and flat passes. Nobody runs and flat passes more, the opposing offenses, than than against Washington. They're throwing short against that card. They're throwing long against that card. Very, very difficult to defend. Not, I mean, he's got a little bit of a pass rush. If he has good pass rush matchups, eighth in sacks, that's where Washington can sneak their way to wins by getting some sacks to get out of that situation, because you got Jonathan Allen on the inside. Jonathan Allen, who's the interior defensive lineman. The name escapes me, but good defensive tackle with good pass rush up the middle. That's how Washington can sort of hang around, but otherwise difficult cards to work with. Overall, I think you get my point here. Dallas, I view as the pretty strong favorite here to take the division.
Yeah, and we mentioned the names of the coaches near the top. I want to include Bruce Mogg, coach of the Eagles, and the Commanders coach David Mugman as well. Congratulations to all four of these coaches for setting us up for what's going to be a fantastic finish here in the NFC East. Let's at least take a look at how these four teams will shape up for the Coach of the Year as well. By the way, as far as wild card, you can see Cowboys have a victory over the Vikings head to head. That might come in handy later, but all of them are right on that fringe for whichever one doesn't win the division, which the Giants are currently leading. As
Mm-hmm.
far as coach of the year for any of these teams that do not get that opportunity to make the postseason, let's see where they stack up here. All right, so the Giants have already qualified. So if they don't win the division, Scott's got his team ready to go to the postseason already. And Commanders, David Mugman needs just two wins for his team to be ready to go. And of course, Cowboys had 12 wins in real life, so they're going to win, get to the postseason, or they will not be in the Coach of the Year tournament this year.
Mm-hmm.
And where's the Eagles? Last one would be the Eagles. There they are. And Bruce would need three more wins to become eligible for Coach of the Year.
Mm-hmm. These teams are dangerous. I think the Eagles and
Oh
Commanders
yes.
in the Coach of Year tournament, and they're you've got a number of these teams. Eagles are one of them. Browns are another. There's a few running oriented teams that in my view are difficult for the passing teams with the short gains all over running cards to deal with. So Commanders, Eagles can get out of the division into COI tournament. I think either have a pretty good shot in the COI, and they both should get there. I mean, they should beat each other up these last 5 weeks
Yeah.
enough to get the wins, given all the wins they have
Commanders have some nice
so far.
playmakers,
Yeah.
and that really helps them. They've got some A-rated yak that makes them a little dangerous. So
Yeah. Gibson is a bit of an underrated runner too. It's not a flashy card.
right,
Interesting. Gibson is number one in the league in end run. Um, Nobody runs around the end more than Antonio Gibson.
interesting.
Um, uh,
McKissick's a nice weapon too.
yeah, and he's 29th. Patterson is 10th. I'm curious, where are they in end runs overall? Yeah, let's see. End runs. When they call run, yeah, 51% of the time, Washington runs end run, leads the league.
Wow,
and
interesting.
and I don't have the cards in front of me, but there are a handful of good end runs out there where you don't have those -8s and -7s sitting out there, and maybe that's why we're seeing it, and you get less linebackers in there because most of us are trying to clog up our short gains in the middle, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So sort of having success on the outside and passing the ball, he's distributing it well. I mean, there's no big leaders in targets even with McLaurin. McLaurin's is, as you'd expect, is number one target guy at 50,
Sure.
56 in the league. So,
All right, let's take a look at the NFC North. Believe it or not, this is also a division that's not quite clinched yet. Let's see if I think I figured it out. Let's see, Vikings could yeah, so you could finish 12-5 and 11-6. So the Vikings still technically could pass them. So it's not a division that's been clinched yet, but I think we can see that the Packers are well on their way. Um, their only blemish is against the Rams recently, an impressive victory for the Rams, by the way. And so let's see, Vikings they're in a wild card position right now. The Bears, I want to give a lot of credit to Mike Martin. He's under 500 now, but the Bears are doing real good, 5-6-1 and competitive. And Lions at 4-8. So we talked about the Green Bay Packers out to an 11-1 start. That's Coach Scott Mueller. Scott's our admin and is the one that sends you your report weekly to advance the week. Skeeter Henderson moved over from the AFC this year to take over for the Minnesota Vikings. And like we referenced earlier, Mike Martin and Michael Emerson has been with the Detroit Lions for a long time. Let's go ahead and see what Anthony has to say about the NFC North. What are you looking at here,
well,
Anthony?
I mean, we start with Green Bay. I mean, it's just dominant. I mean, it's a
Gosh,
laundry list of, and let's forget about Aaron Rodgers for a second. Just forget about that card, right? Get ready for this laundry list. Passing defense, second in the league in completions, fourth in completion percentage. Nobody's given up fewer yards. Third in TDs, fourth in interceptions. That's pass defense. Now let's move to run defense. Fourth in attempts, third in yards, sixth in yards per carry, number one in rushing TDs against. That's the defense. And those defensive cards, as you know, are not that strong on the run. And look what Scott's doing with that team. Just hats off to, we always talk about Green Bay and the schedule, and we always try to be sort of diplomatic to say, well, it's the cards, it's not the coach that's gonna. That's why Green Bay is a tough game, right? Well, yeah, it is the cards, but it's also the coach who's
oh
been
yeah,
able to put together some just impressive defensive stats. Number three in guessed right defensive guessing overall, and you heard all those defensive stats at the top of the league. I mean, that's good coaching right there. So um, there's so much top of the league categories, but for this team, but that's to me the defensive
offensively and
stats.
defensively, both. Yeah,
Yeah, but the defensive stats to me are the sort of ones that probably would surprise people, and he's just doing amazingly. So hats off to Green Bay's success there. I mean, we can list a few others if you want. Number one in takeaway in turnover margin. Number one in time of possession. You know, number one in yards per play against. Number two in yards per play for. I mean, it just doesn't stop. So Green Bay, you have to view them as the prohibitive Super Bowl favorite
I
at this
agree.
stage.
Yep.
When you look at this, just the way they've been able to dominate the league, and they've done it, against not an unreasonable schedule. 20th overall in the league, about 493 is the winning percentage again. So it's not like they've been beaten up on cupcakes all year. Hasn't been the case. And oh, by the way, penalties number one. Number one
Keeping it clean too, on top of everything
in
else.
yeah, yeah. The opponents have a little bit worse on that side, but on his side, just doing well there too. So in every way, we would consider the luck categories or the categories where the coach has all the influence in both categories. Green Bay's just cleaning up. Detroit, I think is a pretty sneaky team. Working from the bottom now. They've had it tough. I mean, overall, they have the toughest schedule in the league, counting the games played and the games coming up. 587 winning percentage. So even against those headwinds, Detroit's been able to put together a 4-8 year so far. They finished 3-13-1 last year. So given that strength of schedule, it's USFFL strength of schedule, not real life, which I think is the USFFL strength of schedule matters more.
Sure, sure.
You've got to hand it to Michael for doing some good work, and I think it's a super interesting game this week against the Broncos. I mean, that's just two teams that are not highly regarded. When you on the cover of the book of the USFFL, you've got the Packers on there. You got all these teams. You don't think about these teams. These are sort of buried in the mix, and they're two very interesting teams that I think that have a chance to do damage if in the postseason. Detroit certainly does because they're going to make the COI, I believe. And if the Broncos, it's certainly the Broncos getting the COI, they'd be a threat too. It could
Yeah,
be a
I agree.
COA final preview this week
Yeah.
in week 14.
Yeah, interesting call. Let's look at the Vikings and Bears as they stack up in the wild card. Like I said, the Vikings are sitting there in position right now, so they just kind of need to keep holding their serve. Bears, though, like I said, great season, but they do have they're there, they're close, but they do have quite a few teams they're going to have to climb, so that they've got a lower margin of error for that hunt. The Lions don't really, like I say, look like they're likely to have enough space here to catch up on a playoff hunt. They're more looking for coach of the year. So let's take a look and
Yeah.
see how these teams line up there. Obviously, um, there's the Lions, as you previously mentioned. You are absolutely correct. They are already qualified. Michael Emerson, if he doesn't make the playoffs, will be in the coach of the year tournament this year. Mike Martin and his Bears, believe needs 2 wins, right? Yeah,
Yep.
because of that, he has that tie, but I think we figured that out. That this chart still holds true, so he would need 2 wins. Bears are close as well, and so then the Vikings, yeah, Vikings as well, 2 wins. So we got these. This is a division that's performing exceedingly well, and might be very well represented in the postseason.
Yep. Yep. Bears. Yeah, the Bears to me, I think Mike is up there in sort of you're talking about coach of year categories, just because Chicago. Yeah, I mean they in real life ended up with six wins, so they weren't a bad team last year. But I don't think the strat cards are a 6-win strat card strat carded team.
Yeah,
So he's had to deal with some difficult cards. It's not the Bears defense of a couple years ago,
exactly.
right? There's holes in that D. The offense does not really have much of a run pass dynamic working. So sort of hats off to Mike for making something out of not nothing, but less than less than he probably was expecting to get from the cards when they came out. And then on the Minnesota side, Minnesota's a dangerous team, and they're dangerous for this recurring theme we're having on this broadcast because they have this run pass threat.
Yeah,
I love the offense. The Listen to this: 16th in run, 13th in flat pass, 18th in short pass, and 14th in long pass. Right down the middle, right?
yeah.
Right in the middle of the league and in the play calling. And that's because you have Cousins and you have Cook. Oh, by the way, you have Jefferson too.
That
Um,
provides you the luxury of balance.
yes, yes, and good job by Skeeter to sort of live up to that, right? Taking advantage of that
Sure.
by not. I mean, you walk into this game, you pull up the tendencies, you pull up the tendency report, and you're not going to really be able to lean on anything because he's doing a good job of taking advantage of his weapons.
Yep. All right, let's move on. 2 more divisions to go. We're going to go to the NFC South, and after Really fast start. The Falcons have leveled off a little bit, but they're still holding about what game and a half to lead, 2.5, something like that. Here in the division over the Buccaneers, who themselves are kind of surged a little bit to get themselves back up to an even record. I think carded they would be considered the favorite, but they still have a little bit of work to do. Panthers, I think, obviously playing up the rear with that 7-loss conference record. They're looking to the coach of the year. That's Jess Geller. I think that he's going to be competitive on that if he gets in. Saints and Bucks. Bucks 6-6. I think the Falcons have a nice lead. That tie means they're not going to have to worry about probably the tiebreaker with the Bucks. They just got to stay ahead. And we can
Mhm.
look at the schedule of them. That's interesting, kind of looking at that. But what are you seeing here with the NFC South, Anthony?
Well, Atlanta was the darling for a long time, and I don't know much, and I haven't really studied Atlanta this year to know how they did. I guess I can take a quick look here. Um, Third in the league in guess right on offense, just 53% of the time do opponents guess them right. So I mean
That's
that sort of sticks out.
oh yeah.
Um, Guessing right on run, fourth in the league. So um, that's strong, but weaker on the pass, 28th. Um, but they had 7 wins in real life. So it wasn't going to be. I think all of us didn't think of Atlanta as anywhere close to 500 team last year. But so there's got to be some strength in those cards. That being said, Dan still has them performing better. They're already at 7 wins now, better than real life. Looking at the overall stats, let's see here. The rush defense is looking pretty strong, and they lead the league in interceptions. They've
Oh
picked
wow.
off they picked off their opponents the highest percentage, and that usually leads you over to double teams. Yeah, number one in the league in double teams called 539 times has Atlanta called for a double team, leads the league, and 12th in success rate. Which, when you're number one in calling, um, you
Is that success rate percentage or success rate instances? I guess is what I'm asking.
percentage,
Okay.
10% of the time, they're correct. So, calling that many double teams and hanging around the top half of the league is a pretty respectable number, which probably leads to this good INT bit. Number one in the league in takeaways is Atlanta.
Well, that's a great stat to have.
Yep. Um, Tampa. I mean, Tampa is a lot like Kansas City,
Hmm.
and I think you go back to this game. This game is difficult to deal with if you don't have strong run cards to balance yourself out. So he would also, similar to KC, would need to force the run to get balance. And just like KC, right at the bottom of the league in guess right passing. 91% of the time when Tampa throws the ball, they're guess right. So makes it very, very difficult. 32nd in the league in calling any small ball, flat or runs. Okay. Number one in short pass attempts, fifth in long pass attempts. So, if you have Brady and you have those runners, that's what the game is sort of telling you to do, and that makes it tough because the defensive coaches see that too, and that I think accounts for Tampa being a little bit behind where they probably would like to be.
I know
Any
that
thoughts on
Brady
that?
was sitting through a very high percentage of interceptions. Not quite as bad as Mahomes, but he was throwing a lot of interceptions compared to what you would card and expect for him. But I'm sure some of that was not being in the best position, like you said, with a high percentage of right calls.
Facing a ton of double teams, third in the league in double teams called against, which goes hand in hand with that sort of one dimensional offense that Tampa has this year. Um,
But
New,
Vince Treble-Piece has started to get that team playing a little better in recent weeks,
mhm.
and he's got them on the verge now.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're still in position, can still do damage, no doubt about it. The Saints have been having a pretty good year defensively.
Coach Dan Sir.
Yeah, and that's what's kept them in it. I mean, last in the league in completion percentage. Sort of
Yikes.
half to split when you have Simeon's card is not
What's the
ripe with completions.
on available attempts for those quarterbacks again?
Um,
Simeon.
both of them have, I think, sub 200, right, or right around that number.
Okay, yeah. So he's going to blend that a lot then.
Yeah, and I'm not sure of the overuse situation there, but I'm sure it's something that he's had to manage
Sure.
all year, and that's led to that very low completion percentage. But third in the league in completion percentage against. Okay, ninth in the league in rushing average against. So fourth in the league overall in yards per play on defense. So the defense has kept him in it. Um, Carolina, another team, not quite as strong defensively as New Orleans, but still fourth in the league in yards per play against. It's pretty stingy D overall. Um, moving moving that free safety about 28th in the league in long pass men in zone at point 0.4, but you sort of have to do that when you're Carolina. Take some
Got to take
chances.
your chances. That's right.
Yep, yep. And the offense is. I mean, as you know, I think you faced Carolina probably a few times in exhibitions and whatnot. I mean,
Yeah.
it's difficult. I mean, they got some runners, but when you get in those guess wrong passing situations, you're not going to hit as much as you would like to.
Yeah. And it's a high turnover probability on that team.
For sure, 30th in the league in turnover margin.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're 27th in takeaways and 28th, which is 27th in takeaways is a bad guy, and 28th in giveaways is also a bad guy. So that gets you to 30th in the league in margin.
So our Falcons here from the South are sitting there currently the 3 seed, half game ahead of the Giants. And we're looking at the Buccaneers here at 6-6. The second place team and the Saints down here at 5-7. So technically, both of those teams still fighting for the possibility of a playoff spot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the Buccaneers, because their card is strong and because Vince has them kind of on an uptick, I like their chances. I think of maybe navigating from this position and getting into the playoffs. We'll have to see.
Could you go back to the NFC South? Just want to see the schedules here
Certainly can.
as we try to project the division here best we can. Uh-huh. So these guys face each other if it's Tampa and Atlanta. But the Saints get the Jets this week. That's going to help. Then they face the Bucs. So that's going to be a turning point there. We're 2 weeks out. 2 weeks out from that turning point game. Very important one. And then the Bucs and the Falcons are not going to meet again. They split. Okay, got it. Well, that helps Atlanta that they don't have to face Tampa Bay again. That
Yeah.
helps a lot.
Yep.
So Atlanta's got a pretty interesting schedule here. I wonder where it ranks. Let me see. Going forward, Atlanta's schedule is it's the 28th toughest schedule
Oh,
going
wow.
remaining with just a 400 win percentage. Tampa's is at even worse, 31st. Bills I guess aren't winning that much. Saints under 500, Panthers under 500, Jets under 500. Yeah, I mean every team they face going forward is under 500, right?
Panthers twice. So
Yep.
and the Jets. That's where the Bucks end their season is Panthers, Jets, Panthers. So
I guess both teams. Is that right? Both teams don't face a team above 500 the rest of the way.
yeah, looks
40,
that
or the
way.
49ers. 49ers.
Uh, no, I think the 49ers are even,
Mhm.
and they are 6-6.
Yep. Yep. Interesting. So they both have relatively weak schedules and they don't face each other. So they're gonna there's a chance. I mean, you got to get 4 or 5 wins out of that because the other guy might get 4 or 5 wins out of that,
Yep.
and the Bucks have some catching up to do. So definitely, Atlanta's the odds-on favorite there. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah,
Atlanta
that's
is
what I
the
would
odds-on
say.
favorite. Yeah.
Let's look at the coach of the year. There's the Panthers. We were talking about Falcons. So if the Falcons don't win that division, you'd still think they are in great shape to get to a wild card. But all else fails, they're still just one win away from making it to the Coach of the Year tournament. If everything were to collapse, you would expect they're still going to be in the postseason. Panthers, aforementioned, Jess Geller needs 2 more wins in his final 5 games in order to get his Panthers into the postseason.
Mhm.
And so then there's our Saints. So they would have to win out, and that would probably get them just into the postseason if they did. And then the Buccaneers, yeah, obviously they're carded for 13 wins, so they won't be in that postseason unless
Carolina
they get
is
that.
super interesting.
Yeah,
Falcons, Bills, Bucks, Saints, and then the Bucks again. They got to get 2 wins out of that, and that certainly seems doable. 2 out of the last 5. None of them are. I mean, you would say it might be the favorite in 1 or 2 of them. So
maybe.
and from a cards perspective, so
It'll
it's
be
likely
close.
it's likely that Carolina gets the COI. That would be great.
Yep. All right, one more division. The NFC West, led at current by the Seattle Seahawks. Dennis Crowley, our tech expert here in the USFFL. He's got a 2-game lead over the carded champs, the Los Angeles Rams, coached by Scott Shoemaker. For those who may not be aware, Scott is the staff member that brings you the USFFL website and its updates regularly. Appreciate all his hard work as well. And then we've got a couple of teams, as all of these teams are at 500 or above. Arizona Cardinals, coached by Tim Hay, and Rich Pierce, coaching the San Francisco 49ers at 6-6. Also, just looking across the board here at the conference record, everybody's at least even there as well. Rams are the only. Oh, I was saying that's not true. The 49ers also have a losing 2-3 division record. But obviously the Seahawks are in the driver's seat here. How did they do against the Rams? Seahawks beat the Rams and have this game 2 coming up in that series. But I'll be interested to see what you have to say about the strength of schedule because Seahawks still have the Texans, Bears, Lions. They have the
Yeah,
Rams, but that looks like the only winning team on their schedule left. What are you seeing here with
Seahawks
the NFC West, Anthony?
Seahawks definite advantage there, and you can just see it in the schedule. So 29th strongest remaining schedule, so very favorable, 398 winning percentage. Where LA is ninth, 567.
Ooh,
Um, so so cards are a bit stacked up against the Rams there. Seattle, we said it all along, right when the cards were released, that this team looked like it's a very sort of well positioned team, and you pair that with a coach like Dennis,
yeah.
and you get a 10-2 record. And he's doing it because he has on offense enough there to really what he's doing is he's running and he's going deep, mixing the two, and that's always tough.
Yeah, he's
I
got he's
think,
got good receivers to do that with too.
yeah, psychologically as well in the game, there's a bias towards not wanting to give up the deep ball, and not giving up the big play, not getting the big turnover, all those things, those big plays, and that that opens up the run game for Seattle, and Dennis shows the long pass enough where you're gonna sit back and it sort of results in what you see here. The Seahawks are fifth best in the league in running guess wrong. And the backs are just good enough. Penny is limited in carries. He's got to manage and shuffle carries, but Dennis is perfectly capable of doing that. The result is number 2 in the league in time of possession. Um, I think where the magic is coming in is that the defense is not. I mean, the run defense is good. The Cards are good. Pass defense is sort of middling. He's going to nickel almost as the base defense, relying on the good run cards. And I think that's worked out really well. I think it's been a really nice move by Dennis, and it's sort of resulted in these just really strong, better than you'd expect passing numbers. Number 2 in completion percentage. Um, so that's a testament to Dennis's coaching there, and then the rushing, despite being in the nickel,
When
he's
he's in, that's
still
what I was going to ask. When he's in the nickel, does he have a stout nose sitting there?
um, 4, I guess is what he's downgraded. It's a base 4.3D, but
Yeah,
just fifth in the league in rushing yards against, and part of that's a function of winning a lot, right? You
sure.
force the teams into the pass, but despite the fact being in the nickel all the time, still fifth in the league in rushing yards. That's quite good. And um, you know the other problem that they have is that they don't have much of a pass rush. So you'd
Right.
you'd assume that the completion percentage would be higher and the pass yards would be worse than sixth best in the league just because of dump offs. But not seeing it, not seeing it come through. Teams tend to want to run. Let's see, do they want to run against this team? Play calling? No, they don't. They're passing against the team. They're passing, looking at those run cards, despite the fact he's in nickel. People only running 35% of the time. We're good for 30th in the league against this D. They're throwing a lot of flats. The second in the league in flat pass against. Seventh in league in second in league in flat. Seventh in long. So they're trying to pass against that nickel, and he's loading up with men in zone, and it's working out. So
Yeah.
really nicely crafted season so far by Dennis, by going to that nickel and pulling off some great defensive numbers and having enough of a run pass dynamic to move the ball down the field.
Yeah. All right, and so then we've got the Rams. They're in like the catbird seat on a wild card, I believe. Yeah, at 8-4. So they haven't like clinched a wild card spot yet, but obviously, if they're not going to win the division, they look like they're primed to go ahead and get themselves into one way or the other. Really like looking at Arizona and San Francisco down here at 6-6. What was Arizona carded at last year? Tim Hay has that team playing pretty good, don't they?
Yeah, well,
Let's
they've come
see
up
here.
since we last come together.
I guess they
Arizona
did
has,
actually win 11. They won 11 games last year.
yeah,
I didn't realize they had that good of a year last year.
and we thought they were undercarded. We talked about it a bit on our last program, but it's good to see Tim sort of roar back
Yeah,
and approach anyway the in real life performance, and they're
he's
doing it
also
throwing the ball. I mean, it's kind of a one dimensional team as well, but not really. James Conner, I think he's lost Conner for a bunch of games, right? Conner been in and out of the lineup.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
He's got the only win in the division against Dennis and the Seahawks,
Mm-hmm.
which was an impressive victory, 2-2 in the division. So it's going to be fun watching all four of these teams battle for postseason position. So I guess really though that the likelihood is none of these teams would be in the Coach of the Year. I didn't realize they were carded for so many wins across the board.
Mm-hmm.
But they're looking for the actual playoffs more than the Coach of the Year, but they're in decent shape. NFC, like I say, 7-5 is the threat. So the Cardinals and 49ers sitting here at 6-6 apiece keeps them nice and close. Uh, I mean, I suppose this is a division as much as any that could maybe get us 4 teams in, possibly.
Let's see here, Rams. Taking a look at the Cardinals schedule the rest of the way.
I wonder
Rams,
how the
Lions, Colts,
Vikings
Cowboys.
and Cowboys tiebreaks are against the Cardinals and Niners. That's one
Mm-hmm.
thing. Look
Mm-hmm.
at that. Vikings and Cowboys for Cardinals and
Not an
Niners.
easy schedule for the Cardinals. Um, got the Rams this week, obviously a big one. At Lions, winnable, but Lions are pesky. And then you're facing one of the top teams in the AFC with the Colts.
Wow.
And
Vikings beat both the Cardinals and the
mm,
49ers. So
yeah,
that's an interesting dynamic. As I'm sitting here wondering if all 4 teams can make it. The
yep,
fact that the Vikings are here and have the tiebreak over both the Cardinals and 49ers, who probably still play each other at least once. We'll see.
that's a great point.
They do not
And
actually. They've already played head to head twice. Nevertheless, both of them having that tiebreak disadvantage against the Vikings means they're going to have to be a little bit more perfect down the stretch, I would think.
yeah, tough sledding for Arizona. That's a tough schedule. I think it's let's see, yeah,
Very much. Wow.
third toughest in the league. You go back to the NFC North and just take a look at Minnesota's schedule for a sec.
Absolutely.
Um,
Rams and Packers back to back.
yeah, you got it. You got to beat. You got better cards than the Bears. You got to win those two. You have better cards than Steelers. You got to win that one,
Yep.
and then hope to pull one or two versus the Rams and Packers. That puts them in a much better position than Arizona, who's probably hoping to be 500 the rest of the way. It's a tough schedule they have.
Yep. Well, let's look at the this page one last time. And Anthony, what just before we get out of here, And I appreciate all your support and your help with everything tonight, and all your dedicated research, both that you've been sharing out there and that you've been helping us with tonight. As you look at the playoff field here, why don't you give me two teams that you're looking at over on the right side that are considered in the hunt that you think might be a good candidate to find a way to sneak in and get themselves into that playoff picture?
Well, I like the Broncos, as you know. I think it's a pretty strong team in the AFC, well carded, tough, tough to stop with an above average defense. Um, Dolphins are hamstrung a little bit by the Cards. Um, Bills just it's kind of a one dimensional team as well. I mean, Singletary's pretty good. But I mean, if I had to choose two, it's a bit tougher because the teams below the Broncos, I think, are all around the same chance. I'd say the Broncos would be the one that the sort of the standout there. Who would fall out? I mean, you go to the AFC West for a second.
Sure will.
Just take a look at the Raiders versus the Broncos. Yeah, okay, so 3 weeks from now. Obviously, a pretty important game. Raiders Broncos
Definitely.
could go a long way to determine if the Broncos can get a playoff spot from them. Um, it's hard to imagine Cincinnati not being a part of the tournament. And then if you could just go back to the wild card there, sorry, the playoff standings.
Absolutely.
And Titans, I mean, Titans is the mystery, right? Out of most of the teams are able to identify a few key stats. So, I don't know. The Titans have a big sort of Riddler moniker, a big question mark around the Titans. They seem to be doing well, but it's not showing up in the wins losses. So um, it could be a battle there between the Broncos and the Raiders, and then maybe one other team sneaking up, to contend. Then in the NFC, um, hmm, Cardinals such a tough schedule. We didn't talk much about the Niners. Um, I'd like to know a little bit more. Niners, as you remember, made a surge at the end last year too, and just missed. Right? I think they just missed, or they just make at the end of the year. The
Yeah, that
Niners.
sounds right.
Didn't really look at them at all. Going forward, they have a pretty favorable schedule, 23rd in the league. Um, they are playing pretty solid defense, having trouble passing with Jimmy G, but that card's not bad, and they've got a bunch of good runners.
To keep it on
Um,
the wrong side, help keep them on wrong too.
yeah, so I think it's probably San Francisco has the best shot of emerging there, and you can't deny the cards of Tampa. I mean, we've been talking
Right.
all about the offensive cards, but the defensive cards are so strong that they got a tough schedule, right? But those cards speak to me. So, well, how about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Commanders, I made reference to that earlier. I like their playmakers. The fact that they have plenty of control of their destiny with, strictly division games left. I think that that's a team that I could really see making the playoffs. Up to the top, believe it or not, kind of the Ravens a little bit. I think John's a pretty good coach, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
uh, they can run. It's not necessarily one of their best running years, but they can run the ball. They do run the ball, and I think that that's going to help present those wrong opportunities. And they also don't have in their division games. They don't have anybody that's rolling out there with a 10-win pace to compete with in their remaining schedule too. I don't know. I kind of like the Ravens maybe to get a shot and get back in there.
John has such a hard job on defense this year. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
that's
just
true.
no pass rush, and that short passing card is Washington like um, in its completions. And
Which is
with
surprising. They had so many injuries in Baltimore last year,
yeah,
as I recall.
he's been bringing the blitz, seventh in sack chances,
Wow.
but just 16th in and that's 16th in sack win percentage. I think he's punching above his weight, as a matter of fact. Um, but 12th in sacks, despite the fact bringing the blitz from the safety. Um, it's tough sledding on D, but a very good run defense to lean on. So he sort of, you know, he could think about taking up the Seattle approach and going nickel more, and maybe blitzing out of that and getting more men in zone. That might be a way for John to cover up some of the flaws in that squad.
All right. Well, that's all. Unless you have anything that you wanted to add, Anthony.
Yeah, let's just go back and look 1 second at the playoff.
Sure. The playoff tree again.
Yep.
You bet. Right
So
there.
so top two get buys, right?
That's just the
Is
green.
that right, or is it different this year because we're going 18, or was that last year?
So it's just like last year. Only one team in each conference gets the bye. That's
Oh, one.
delineated by the green there.
Gotcha. So that makes for an interesting little mini discussion. In the AFC, Patriots have the win over the Chargers,
Right.
and then the Chargers. Sorry, then the Patriots are going to face the Colts in 2 weeks. So a lot's going to be decided there.
Right there. Yep.
Yep, a lot's going to be decided in that game, and the Chargers are going to have to manage to climb. Get the win this week, and then gain a game on the Pats to have a shot at the number one seed. We talked. Do you recall? Did you do any research? Do we heal or not the injuries in the
Oh,
playoff maybe?
yeah. Great question. So I believe that we do not. I still need to double check the precedent on that, but I believe we do not.
We need to write that down. If as next year we should probably get that in that if you earn that bye, the healing during bye weeks is way too much. Just in a general topic here, way too much of an administrative burden during
Right.
17 weeks of the regular season. Okay, Jason used to do it for us. I commend him that he'd go in there and figure all that out every week, and that's really a stellar job by him. Then, but I think it's just
You
too
th-
much.
I-
But for the 1 week of the playoffs, yes,
and for one team only. Well,
yes,
two teams
exactly.
total.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
No. I agree 100%. It's my hope that when I check into that I discover that our precedent is to heal up on that, but I don't think we did, and I think we would need to vote that in, and you get my support if we wanted to do that just for because we're not removing injuries, we're just healing up just for the bye week of playoffs, and I think we could do that for that. I'd be all for that probably.
Yeah. And
So,
then down the NFC, we have the Packers win over the Seahawks. Correct.
yes,
Mm-hmm. So it's a game and a half lead for the Pack. So they're going to have to fall off pretty substantially to lose their number one seed there, and that's going to be difficult hill to climb for anybody. If you look down through there, right? I mean, just again, let's just focus on cards for a moment. What team? Seahawks, I think would play them tough again. Falcons and Giants are undermanned. I mean, it'd take a very very strong game. Same thing with the Rams, I think, frankly. Stafford's card just leads a little bit to be desired in the long pass, especially that pick hanging out there. Cowboys, however, Prescott's got the card. Elliott gives you enough. Elliott and Pollard give you enough running. I mean, they could. I'm fond of that team, and Vikings too. Have enough run pass, but overall, Packers are looking really good in the NFC. In the AFC, Patriots get the bye. Even with the bye, I think it's still a wide open race in the AFC.
yeah, and
Um,
Colts control their
yeah,
own destiny to get that one seed, having that game against the Patriots coming up.
yep, yep. And the Colts stand out with a good D and Jonathan
Hmm.
Taylor, and a decent card from Carson Wentz is perhaps the best. Just like last year, I thought the Colts had the best carded team in the AFC.
Yeah,
I, I hesitate from saying that right now, but I would lean that way. I would say that the Colts have a pretty good shot of emerging, but not a pluralistic shot, not not a majority shot. It's for the most part, nobody has more than a you know twenty
oh,
percent
sure,
chance
sure, sure.
of getting out of the
But
AFC, which should
but
be
I
a
agree
very
with your
close race.
assessment that they're one of the two or three best carded contenders that the AFC has to offer. I think.
Yep, I think Browns Colts would be an interesting game. But you compare Wentz to the to Mayfield, and Wentz gives you a definite advantage. I'd like to see the pass rush matchups between the two, right? Because the Browns
Yeah.
lean so heavily on the pass rush. But and bottom line, AFC wide open, NFC it's going to take an upset to get past the Packers.
Yeah, probably so. All right. Well, hey, wanted to thank everybody. We're going to go ahead and get this posted out there so that you can all listen to that and be a part of it. And we'll keep you up to date as we go along and close out Week 14 and head down the stretch here for another playoff chase in the USFFL. Thanks for making a special night of this for me. I appreciate that, Anthony.
Appreciate you, Tim. Thank you very much for doing it as well.
You bet. Thanks a lot, people. Good luck down the stretch for us.